Hello and welcome to SquishiVision, where I'm reacting to an episode I watched this morning and then got sleepy, so I didn't actually do my video. Until now, this is episode 6 of Agatha All Along, Familiar by Thy Side. Yeah, this is very similar in structure to WandaVision, where there's a reveal, and in the next episode, we don't follow the main protagonist of the show, but switch kind of perspective to one of the supporting cast to get their perspective on what's been occurring. Why does YouTube think we're streaming at 1 in the morning? Unclear. Anyway, in this case, we're following Billy Kaplan, Billy Maximoff, William Kaplan, Billy Maximoff. And the reveal is simply that William Kaplan was a person, this person, and they died in a car crash. That is somewhat related, not directly, to the Hex ending, and because at that exact same time, Maximoff was being erased out of existence. Somehow his spirit, his essence, transferred over to the corpse of a freshly dead body of pretty much the exact same. Actually, I think moved in the exact same second that Kaplan died and Billy Maximoff was resurrected. And it's a good example of Marvel basically making a show, an episode of a show that feels like it could be like a part of any other like basically if you took this isolation. This would be like the setup of like a thriller or horror. It's a good premise, and it you know, you could sit some down, you could watch it, and it's a question of how long it would take to realize that this is a Marvel episode of a Marvel TV show rather than just a genre piece of genre TV. Obviously, there are bits of like Marvel in it, but it's very like tense and horrifying, and like you're expecting the things to go wrong, and then it's like kind of spooky when there's this kid who's like stuck in the body of another kid and dealing with like the parents, and it's like, well, everything's amnesia, and then also it's like kind of terrifying. It's a really like terrifying thing to play around with, the idea of being a freshly amnesiac child, hearing the thoughts of your parents who are absolutely like having those, you know, instinctual thoughts that you obviously would never dream of acting upon. You'd never dream your loved ones ever knowing you were failing. But like it's a common thing. Like, you know, obviously the person who matters in any disabling accident is the person who's become freshly disabled, is the person whose accidents happened to. But obviously it impacts, you know, loved ones around that person. And it is, you know, it's a brutal reality that unfortunately, you know, people who have to become carers have the degree of like, you know, resentment and trauma and things like that, and it's fine. You know, it revives feelings. Obviously, if you're that kind of person, you should also learn to deal with that yourself in a healthy way that doesn't add more trauma to the person who you're looking after. But you know, it's something to explore for sure, and it does obviously not. It's not like a big part of his show. You'd probably need an entire like show to deal with it, and outside the scope of Marvel, but. Interesting that we kind of touch on that. It's nice to kind of touch on that kind of like darker side of recovery from a traumatic accident. I think I had a kind of supernatural twist to that, which is that obviously the kid is able to read his thoughts to his parents, and you know, he's hearing the different kind of like spectrum of things, and like it's very family drama thrown in there. And then obviously then again we shift kind of focus to Billy kind of slowly realizing what's going on. Evan Peters makes slightly less shocking, but perhaps not less surprising, repeat cameo. We get some of Ralph Boner's backstory. It's interesting. It's still, the whole Quicksilver misdirect is still massively infuriating, because I'm not entirely sure how unfair I'm being, because I guess the intent of the twist is essentially this isn't actually Quicksilver, this is someone impersonating Quicksilver. And the only way you bring the audience along with that journey is if you do enough meta signifying within the narrative that the audience has. And what stronger way to suggest to the audience that this is Quicksilver by making them think that it's a multiversal version of Quicksilver, and then you've got to do that casting to reflect that. But like so much, I don't know, so much of you wants us to believe that this is the Fox version of Quicksilver. But I guess we're now kind of, I'm so angry that it's not. But I'm like, maybe that's the point. Like, it's not missed opportunity. It is literally the point of that misdirection. But that's done happened with, and I guess this reappearance, this completely solidifies. It just happens to be someone who happens. I mean, all the Marvel films are canon to each other. All Marvel is canon to each other because of multiverse. Like the comics are canon to the film because they're just happening in different universes. So it just happens that this person in this in Earth 19999 happens to look like Peter Maximoff in Earth whatever the Fox universe code is. I don't know off the top of my head. Coincidence. I think it's coincidence has infuriated me because I need to rationalize that coincidence. I really do. Like, my mind has to rationalize it, but there isn't really a way you can rationalize it. But he appears and basically just gives us the backstory of WandaVision for Billy's benefit. I don't know if there's anyone watching Agatha all along who hasn't watched WandaVision. I suppose it's a theoretical possibility, but I don't think it's probably aimed for anyone who does that. And we get a bit more kind of just explanation of that, Ralph Boner just happened to be one of the people who got taken over, what his perspective was, and then what he's been doing since. But it's mostly there, I think, for comedic value than anything else. And it gives kind of Billy that kind of insight. And then we see the kind of his side of what we saw from the first appearance in the first episode when he goes and breaks into Agatha's house. It's interesting because they didn't commit to the whole. They didn't go full clever. I don't think it's because they were being lazy. I just think they didn't feel there was a point to it. I don't know. It's definitely a choice. Like, they could have gone full clever with the writing and had it so everything that Billy said in episode 1 made sense in a different context, and the only thing that changes is the set. So it's the exact same conversation. Or Billy says similar things that get twisted into which maybe is what's happening here. I guess what I'm saying is the interesting thing is everything that Billy says dialogue, and it's lampshaded on. It's not like it's deliberate. Everything that Billy says in this episode isn't what he says in the first episode. So we're not seeing it's not like what Agatha is seeing in her kind of trapped mind palace is the exact same behavior, just in a different skin. It's been filtered through differently, so it doesn't really matter terribly. There's some influence, but it doesn't hugely matter what the people in real life are doing. It doesn't influence that deeply, except for that one line he says about the flowers, which kind of pushes through. I was expecting the line about the mirror to push through as well, but actually, strangely, that's a different line. Like in the first episode, he goes, "Why do you keep looking at the mirror? Why do you keep looking at the painting?" And he says something. I'm sure he says something different in this episode. Like, even what Mrs. Hart does with the door changes, because in the original episode he hits him with a car. This kid is having a lot of luck with car accidents, and he does a spell, and then we catch up to where we were, and then we get the final scene of the episode where they interact, and it's definitely a strong episode now that the veil has been lifted from both sides, where Agatha is basically able to kind of still, despite being put through a swamp and mud and having a bit of a cop-out escape of just being able to drag herself out of the mud and losing her coat, just taunts Billy relentlessly, and showing that she still kind of has a lot of power here. Billy being obviously unable to act against her because obviously she'll be able to drain his power, and then them committing to this reluctant partnership. But it's Catherine Hahn does what's her name? It's Catherine Hahn, isn't it? I'm not just butchering that. Yeah, Catherine Hahn does a really good job of just playing up the cheesiness and the camp and the over dramatic nature of the role. But it's it works. It's it works as a bit that she's doing to control the scene, control the area. It's a deliberate level of drama that's very self-aware. So yeah, I think it was a good episode. I think it was a really good kind of exposition of the backstory of the context of the characters. We're episode 6, I think, of 9. Again. Or was it 8 episodes? How many are you expecting? The first, the next. Oh, okay, so yeah, there's 2 more episodes. They're going to be released. No? Hang on. The next 5 episodes. Up to, oh, yeah, there is 9. So next week is episode 7, and then we get 8, 9 back to back as a kind of like a double finale. So really, next episode has got to basically set us up for the finale. So we're at this crucial stage where WandaVision was kind of getting weaker because it was kind of doing this new thing that didn't really rely heavily on the build up. And it's like, well, what was the point of the build up? And then the finale was like something completely different. So it's interesting to see if Agatha alone can stick the landing in the way that WandaVision didn't stick the landing, or at least a lot of people didn't think, me included, didn't stick the landing. So I guess we're progressing. I think there's still space. The show has been pacing itself nicely, better than the other shows, I think. That it could go in either direction for the finale. It can set up a pretty much new premise. All the cards are on the table. I would suggest, I would predict the next episode completes the trials, or all but one of the trials. Pulls the episode as the last trial, and then the end episode kind of deals with the fallout. That would be my ideal pacing. I don't know really if we have much in the way of mysteries. I guess the only remaining mystery is possibly Nicholas Scratch and what happened to them, but also that's not really a mystery we need to be solved because we kind of already know what is happening with what happened to that character, or enough. Like, it's not, if it doesn't get answered, it's just another mystery of the character. There's so much about Agatha we don't already know anyway, so we could just focus basically on the plot. I don't think there's any like strong remaining mysteries kind of resolved, but so I guess it could helpfully go in a completely different direction. Like this, we've already kind of resolved a lot of the build up here. I guess Agatha, there is again. Well, I guess the other kind of character beat we need to resolve is, does Agatha care about Billy? Because in Extremis, in that moment in the dark where no one was watching Agatha, she was genuinely like worried about Billy dying or not dying. Possibly that was before she that was when she was not sure if Billy was her son or not. And then that might have like been resolved already, just like very kind of like silently resolved. Or maybe that's another aspect to explore. Anyway, I'm going to step into a stream because I want to watch the very brief, quick teaser for the new Wallace and Gromit film, which we're going to get in 2 months' time, 2 months in a week. And then I need to go eat some food. So I guess I set that stream up now. Eat food. Live the rest of my life. That's basically the 3 things I need to do. That's like my to-do list for like the rest of my life is that reaction, eat food, and then just do the rest of my life just as a blanket thing. So thank you, and see you in a few moments.